If you are a frequent listener to the podcast, you know that we have been sponsored by Fuji Sports for quite some time now. Whether you're looking for apparel, equipment, bags, or accessories, Fuji Sports has got it covered. Go to Fujisports.com to see the latest selection of everything you need for your Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, or MMA journey. That's Fujisports.com. Let me take a minute to tell you about ROL TV. If you're looking to take your Jiu-Jitsu to the next level and supplement your BJJ education, then ROL TV has you covered. ROLAcademy.tv has over 1,500 videos covering individual techniques, positions, and concepts, including seminars and workshops with top-level competitors and instructors like Chris Wojcik, Robert Drysdale, Aaron Hurley, Emily Kwok, and more. Whether you are a beginner or a more advanced student, ROL TV is the online platform that can take your jiu-jitsu to the next level. What's up, everyone, and welcome back. If you haven't already, please hit the like, share, subscribe, download, listen, and whatever other button there is, and leave us a review wherever you listen. This helps us bring you the great guests and amazing content that you've come to expect. On this episode, Thomas's guest shares his journey from a traditional martial arts background to running a successful jiu-jitsu academy. He emphasizes the importance of decision-making, calmness, and logic in martial arts, as well as the difference between teaching and practicing. He discusses the significance of creating a positive culture within an academy, the role of leadership, and the evolution of jiu-jitsu as a community. He also highlights the challenges of being an instructor and the need for professionalism in the industry. Here's the ROL Radio with the founder and owner of the Grounds MMA Academy in Bonita Springs, Florida, member of the Carlson Gracie Team, and Roufusport Kickboxing Association, Joshua Frye.
Welcome to ROL Radio.
And we're live. Josh, how are you?
I'm great. How are you today, Thomas?
I'm great. Thanks for joining me from a sunny Florida.
Yes.
How is no, you don't have to do that. You don't have to look out the window and do all that stuff. Like, it's still okay. The weather is still okay in Chicago, but as in Florida, that's wrong to talk about weather in Florida.
It's hot right now. It's that time of year. It's our winter season where it's hot, humid, and rainy. So
this is your hurricane season, right? I mean, there's nothing going on right now, but this is the stuff where everybody bails out of there, right?
Exactly. After October, we are one of the most beautiful places in the United States. So I love Southwest Florida. That's for sure.
Well, good for you. Good for you.
Yes,
you're in a great place. But I think what's interesting about your story in general, and that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to talk to you about, is you come from education background. You are in education background. You are running very successful Jiu-Jitsu, MMA, fitness academy, which creates a very, very interesting dynamic. But before we get to this, as I was getting ready for this, I saw one of your clips. And it was some kind of fight. I don't even know exactly what it was, but you made an interesting statement, and that stuck with me. Is sometimes we just need to make smart decisions. And I would love to kick off of that, because I think oftentimes when emotions get involved and when we think irrationally, we just react to things, we make, well, for lack of a better term, stupid decisions. And I think particularly in Jiu-Jitsu, that's important, isn't it? I mean, we find ourselves in compromised positions. We can be very spontaneous. We can be very emotional even in some spots. And staying cool and really keeping logic behind this is important, isn't it?
I agree. As martial artists, we study martial arts no matter if it's Jiu-Jitsu or kickboxing or Taekwondo. At the end of the day, it's about bettering ourselves and being self-aware. And so, with martial arts, it's a martial art, meaning that we are having the discipline to, grow as human beings and test ourselves on a daily basis, no matter what art you are. And I think, when we see altercations where emotions are involved and people kind of, are not thinking straight, I think as a martial artist, it's our right and our due diligence to be able to, calm down, focus on the situation, be logical, even though your heart and your brain's racing, to make, good decisions, especially if we train arts. That's the whole point of being disciplined. And, I think when I see those reality videos, the clips that I put out there, most people don't have that rational statement. They're thinking with their emotions, not their brain. And, if anything we learn from martial arts is that we're disciplined people, and we're learning from those, those environmental changes and things that are happening around us. We got to make good decisions. So yeah, whatever I said, that clip, I don't remember the clip, but I have a lot of clips out there. So
No, I get it. But also, like, even when we talk about training jiu-jitsu or training MMA, we do find ourselves in emotional positions, somewhere where we didn't want to be, somewhere where we don't feel comfortable. And even then, staying calm is difficult but necessary, isn't it?
It is. I think, around the white belt phase, you start to learn that after about a year of training. You're always getting smashed and having that calmness to go, okay, let's think about this rationally. Do I have the right frames in place? Am I taking the time to breathe appropriately? Am I letting this guy get in my head, or is it really a physical confrontation? How do you calm that part of your brain is really interesting. That's what always attracted me to jiu-jitsu is, calm yourself down, solve the problem that's right in front of you, and keep moving forward. So, yeah.
So how do we do that? What's your recipe, I guess?
My recipe is, for me, I'm a very hyperactive person. I do a lot of things. And so that's what I love about jiu-jitsu. You can't focus about what's happening right then and there. So I think, just look at the problem, take a deep breath, and see how you can solve it. And then, for me, it always begins with frames, bridging, creating space, and in jiu-jitsu. And taking a deep breath and visualizing it, and then try it and make it happen. If it doesn't happen, then, the more advanced you get, the more you come up with different ideas or alternative, solutions to those problems. So,
but we both know there is probably hundreds, if not thousands, of white belts listening to us right now, and they say, yeah. But he's on top of me, and then, like, I need to go. Isn't it how interesting how our brain reacts almost opposite to what the common sense might be in a situation like this?
Yes. But that's what the beauty of jiu-jitsu is. It trains you to look at the alternative points or viewpoints and calm yourself down and not be a monkey, but actually be a thinker, and actually solve the problem in front of you. So, yeah, I think calming down and more experience on the mat helps with that, for sure. The older we get, we have to rely on our fundamentals, and fundamentals is creating space, putting our body in positions that are not going to be taken advantage of, and then using what God-given talents you have to solve that problem, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. You're right. Older we get, I feel, perhaps this is why they call it old man jiu-jitsu. It's just slow things down and this very logical approach to all of this, and it's interesting talking about, because as you were saying, I recently had Henry Atkins at my academy for seminar.
Beautiful. Amazing. Yeah, that's cool.
I know. and I was speaking to some of my students afterwards, and many of them essentially said the same thing in different words. They were like, well, we didn't learn anything new, but yet everything changed. Like, there's like, nobody ever talks about this stuff, and it's like, it was all just space management and just being, and it's such a simple way of thinking and processing all of this.
Yeah, each teacher, each professor, each person has their own style and technique. I think the more simply we can say it, the more profound it is. What's that saying? If you can't say it simply, you don't truly understand it. And so I think Henry Atkins is, definitely one of those guys who's, got that mastered, so it can be profound, because we tend to over technique everything in jiu-jitsu world. Like, let's talk about this. And then all of a sudden it's 15 minutes later, and basically you just put your elbow in front of their face, but yet, you want to be profound for a minute. It's that martial art kind of thing where sometimes we just got to remember to keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And that translates very much so in real life, doesn't it? Don't we complicate things as humans?
Yeah, I think so, but it makes us feel important, I guess. I don't know.
Is that what it is?
I think so. I don't know.
Well, I'm curious, because you interact with a lot of young people, right? In the education and the school systems, right? Is that what they are seeking?
I think, well, it's about relationships. It's about interactions with people, I've been a teacher for over 25 years now in the school system in the state of Florida. I've taught elementary school, I've taught middle school, I've taught high school. Now I teach at a college campus, a high school on a campus. And, it's really just about forming relationships. And that's what martial artists do as martial art instructors. We form relationships with people. And how can we impact them? Either it's mathematics or it's jiu-jitsu. It's the same vehicle. It's just done in a different environment.
But just maybe we'll say to this, well, wait a minute. Like I can be friends and go to coffee. I don't need to come to jiu-jitsu. So like why? And I'm not disagreeing with you. You're 100% 100% on it. It's just like I feel like many people don't understand this until they step on a mat and are really part of that environment.
Yeah. To put the cult in culture, I think that, the environment in which you're with, the people and, what you're doing. Like, I like coffee, but some of my friends can't stand coffee. Jiu-jitsu just is our common thread when we teach on the mat. It's like we both want to better ourselves through martial arts. And we know that going through the art changes us, it makes us feel better, more patient in life. And so that's the common bound. So as teachers, in general, we're trying to, use that relationship to better them and trying to find out who they are and get to know some good friends along the way. So, I don't know, education and martial arts, they're hand in hand, they're the same thing. So,
but many think it's not. Don't you think?
Oh.
Many don't think that. I mean, many think, hey, listen, I got my brown belt, I get my black belt. Listen, I got my blue belt, and I can teach everybody everything right now. And I'm not taking away, and I am by no means taking away from the skill of those who do.
Yeah.
However, teaching jiu-jitsu is very different than doing jiu-jitsu, isn't it?
I think it is, yeah. It takes time. You're going to fail a lot. Yeah, it is definitely completely different than doing jiu-jitsu and teaching jiu-jitsu. Just because you're a good practitioner doesn't mean you're a great teacher. That's for sure. I've seen some world champion guys who are amazing practitioners, but been in a seminar, and I'm like, what did I just learn? I have no idea what just happened. But it's just a name, and so that's why you're there. And
it's
so
almost
there.
And it's almost unfortunate, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very unfortunate, yeah. I think teaching is a craft. You definitely have to have your style, and it takes years of time to do that. It helps to be a good practitioner, in jiu-jitsu. But at the end of the day, it's about how you relate to people. And no matter what it is, like I said, if it's mathematics or jiu-jitsu, it's how you relate to people.
Is that the recipe?
I think it is.
Empathetic, connecting, creating relationships.
And create an environment of mutual respect, setting parameters and what things do you expect, how do we ask questions, how do we solve things together, is it a laid back school, is it a very rigid traditional school? For me, I started traditional martial arts in 1985, so when I was 7 years old. I'm 47 years old right now, and so being in that rigid culture, when I opened up my academy, I didn't want a Taekwondo school. Or karate school. I wanted MMA Jiu-Jitsu school because I wanted a more laid-back culture, because I wanted more people, to want to hang and be able to learn from that environment, So I think as educators or martial artists, the same thing. It's our job to set up that culture so we can set up success. And, fortunately for me, it's worked because my culture, my school, we have 600 active members right now. We're at 555 right now as we speak. So, So it works.
So what is the recipe then?
I think being a good leader, surrounding yourself with people that help you see that vision. I think a clear mission statement, just like any kind of business, you have to have a clear vision and a clear mission statement. My guys and my team all know, not my team as my students, but my employees, my guys who help me run the academy, because it takes more than just one person. When you get over 100 some students, I'm very clear on our 3-year vision, what I expect, what's expected of them. I think clear defined roles in an academy help that out, if that makes sense.
That sounds like a serious operation.
Yeah, I think it has to be because, like you said, you just said to everybody that I'm a school teacher. So I work a 48-hour plus week job being a school teacher, but I also run, 600 member academy. And, I'm not there all the time. I'm not there in day classes. I'm not there on Saturday mornings. I'm there in the evenings a couple nights a week. And so I have to have clearly defined roles and a really smooth operation with systems that back up everything, so that I know that the quality is there even when I'm not there. So, but that took years of work, years of work.
Many would look at this, and to this point, I think many do look at this in a sense of, hey, listen, I know jiu-jitsu. Let me just get a couple of guys on the mat, and then I'm going to start teaching. And you know, running an academy is not that difficult. Why Josh is making this so complicated?
Because I think you just said it. You said the word academy versus, you know, I feel a couple guys, an advanced practitioner, maybe a purple belt or higher, you know, you can throw some mats down in your garage or a rec center and run classes, but I wouldn't consider that an academy. I'd consider that a club or a hobby. You know, at a certain point, you need to make structure that actually provides educational experiences through martial arts to a way that's very systematic. And it's a way that, you know, that all people can learn from 6 years old to 3 years old. And so, you know, I think that's important to defer, like, hey, there's an academy and there's a club. There's a lot of clubs out there, you know, and I would consider anybody less than 200 active members is probably still a club, you know, to get over 300, 400 active members when your growth starts coming up, you definitely have to run an academy.
Many would disagree with this in the sense of you are slowing things down. You're too rigid. There's too many rules. Like, isn't jiu-jitsu supposed to be free-flowing and peace, life is good, let's go serve, let's get acai, you know, let's be brothers. That's often used. Like, I feel like there is this two different sides of this conversation where many things, let's just shoot things off the hip. We don't even need curriculums, or schedule can be very fluid. Let's just show up. And I listen. I run my academy very similar to yours, so I agree with that. But there is that conversation. There are those arguments, and then on the flip side, there is this more structured business-like approach to all of this.
I think you can have both. If you walk into my academy tomorrow, it's very laid back. We have a coffee bar. We sell Jocko drinks. We have an area where people can chill. You know, there's coffee tables. It feels like a mini Starbucks for MMA. And that's my front lobby area. And there's people that stay half hour to 45 minutes after classes talking. You know, we have sauna, cold plunge rooms, some shower rooms. People chill and talk afterwards because they don't realize if it's a good system, a good structure, they don't realize it's happening. They don't realize those systems are running every day. And that's the beauty of it. You know, we do have that laid back brotherhood culture. You know, half my students are my close friends, because we hang out afterwards, we talk, we go golfing together, we go to the beach together. Like, that culture is still there. It's just that to expand behind 200 members, you have to have systems in place that check everything. You know, are we getting good quality classes? Are we talking with each student after each week about their goals? Are we losing that weight? Are we signing up for that tournament? Are we getting that next rank? You know, these are things that, you know, that happen every day in my school because of systems. So they don't know they exist, but it gets done, if that makes sense.
And I think that really speaks volume about quality of those systems, is if students or clients don't see them as this is a system, if there's something happening behind the scenes, yet things are getting done, that speaks volume about the team, about the leadership, about how this is being accomplished, right?
Yes. It's not micromanaging, it's just setting up expectations and then just reviewing those. You know, one of my mentors always talks about math is the path. You know, we look at that every month and every week. Like, are we moving towards our goals as a business? Are we also moving forward as goals as instructors and people who motivate people's lives? So we talk often more about not, hey, did we get that many leads this month? We talk more about, hey, so-and-so is looking really good. Have they hit their goal? Are they signed up for the next Fuji tournament? Those kinds of things. For me, I find that fun.
Yeah, that's the fun part, running on a lot of this, and being
because the little stuff,
people, right?
Yes, impacting people. That little stuff, though, that people, the bills, the insurance, the taxes, that stuff will wear you down. And so you have to have systems that take care of them. But you know, that's not our main focus. So it's definitely about impacting people for sure.
It has to feel refreshing to you to watch over the period of years, see students grow. And I mean, having 500, 600, that's an accomplishment of its own. Many academies dream of half of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you know, 200, 300, that's a big accomplishment.
Yeah, I was happy as hell with 200 members when I first started, when I was making those bills. That's for sure.
Yeah. It has to feel refreshing to sit back and watch all of this unfold in front of your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, I think everybody knows, part of your academy, that none of this would exist without you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think in the early days, especially the first few years, your first couple hundred students, it is dependent on you 100%. But there's a certain point where you get burnt out because you're teaching everything. You're cleaning bathrooms, you're mopping mats, you're answering phone calls, doing cancelizations, all that stuff that business people don't like. That can wear you out after a while. Get some more of these gray hairs. But at the end of the day, what am I doing this for? How am I impacting more people? When I started hiring a team to take it over and help out and emulate me, but also develop their own leadership style, when I realized that my goals were changing to empower my team, my staff, and their lives being better, they can afford that house, they can afford that car payment, they can make it a lifestyle, not just a hobby. That's when we exploded past the 400 mark. And now my main goal now is inspiring my staff, and then I teach my advanced classes and my fun striking classes I still like to teach. Just for fun. And I think it's a really cool place to be, but it takes years. I've been in operation for over, going on 12 years now. And so it didn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen the first 5 years. It takes constant development, constant moving forward, constantly seeking out mentors that you respect, so you don't become that McDojo or sell out your morals for more members. It's just a byproduct of really good quality systems and quality culture. And through time, as you evolve, it will grow. So it just takes time, and people are not patient nowadays. So that's why they need more jiu-jitsu in their life.
Right. I think that's the difficult part about running Jiu-Jitsu Academy, that people are not patient these days. I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like everybody wants everything right now at this moment without much of an effort. And that's the opposite side of the spectrum when it comes to Jiu-Jitsu, right?
Yeah, I agreed. Time is a variable, but it's not all the variable. I think, you have to be patient in the process, but you also got to trust the leaders that they're going to take you somewhere that has changed you as a person. May that be a black belt in jiu-jitsu, may that be your next tournament, maybe that be 20 pounds of weight loss and getting out of the house. You got to trust the process. So for me, I try not to focus so much on rank with my students, but more about, the culture of just showing up and being able to, have fun in that process. Because if we focus so much on the stripe or the belt, you get lost in that. And that breeds into your culture of like, hey man, so-and-so got that next rank and I didn't. And then you have that negative culture starting to develop. So my school, we don't do that. Like we give out these, little benchmarks for retention for adults throughout the journey. For example, hey, you just hit your first 100 class. Okay. Here's our championship belt. We want you to take a picture for our social because, you just did 100 classes of hard jiu-jitsu and we want to celebrate that for you. It doesn't require a rank, but we're going to go ahead and shout you out in front of everybody. We have classes, 40 to 60 members in a class. Like, it makes them feel good because as adults, as the older we get, we don't have moments of impact where we get an attaboys anymore. We pay our mortgages, we get yelled at by our wives, and the next thing you know, we don't get the attaboy. And so I think, adults, we need it more than ever, and it doesn't have to be corny. You develop things for your culture that give these moments of impact where you can celebrate success, and it doesn't have to do with rank. So I think that helps a little bit with that, the impatient culture of success. Like, I want my belt right away,
Many do.
Yes, they do. And I mean, it's part of it. We all do jiu-jitsu because we want a black belt eventually, hopefully, or just a blue belt. Some people, our quit rate, most people in the nation quit at blue belt if they make blue belt,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, some will argue that's the hardest path to the blue belt, right?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Where is all this wisdom come from? It seems like you put a lot of thought into this, and for somebody who is extremely busy with a full-time job, it appears to me that either you don't sleep or you have nothing else to do in your life. There's a lot of deep thought that you put into all of this, and granted, 12 years is not a last month kind of thing. So there's a lot of trial and error, I would imagine, that you have gone through. However, I do feel like this goes deeper than that.
I don't know. Being a child in the martial art industry, I grew up in it. And so my mother was a single parent. She was a welder outside Chicago. She was a union worker, welded 32 years. And so I was by myself a lot. So The martial arts raised me, Taekwondo, karate, kickboxing, then I got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu later in life. And so I think because I was raised in that environment, I have a lot of respect for it. And I think, more than ever, I think it needs to evolve in a way that hasn't been evolved before. What we did in the past isn't always the best. And so with my school, I always wanted to do something uniquely different. And, it's definitely trial and error. I think the concept that I like to use a lot in my classroom, I use in my real life and my business, is fail fast. Failing fast and learning from your mistakes and adjusting it and pivoting are huge things that have helped me a lot. I've made so many mistakes, I've learned the hard way. But then after, I failed, like, what can I do better? So reflective on what you do and how you do it. And then moving forward is really a hard thing to do for some people. But once you do it, you learn, you've already been there. And so when another problem arises, not when another problem arises, you have a better perspective on that. But I also think surround yourself with people you want to be like. Some of my closest friends in the industry are super schools, man, not just in like traditional martial arts, but Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA schools. One of my friends who I love to death at Matt ROL, we talk, we were in mastermind groups together. When I first opened my school, the first year I was in a mastermind right off the bat. So, I've evolved in different masterminds throughout the year as I've grown, but the people that I surround myself with has really inspired me. And you steal things as martial art or business owners. We steal things that work. I want to share, I want to get to know you, Thomas, about your school. You have a very successful school. What are some things that you're doing that I'm not doing? And so surrounding yourself with people you want to be like helps. Failing fast helps, and making sure that you're reflecting on not what you did in the past, but what you can continue to do to evolve for your students.
Yeah, I think you're mentioning something that's really important with all of this in life and in jiu-jitsu in particular. You talk about like growth mindsets versus just being stuck in your own ways, And I love the phrase "fail fast." But again, there will be many people out there who will think that, well, I don't know, like, what are you talking about, dude? You're like, come on now. We're here to learn. I want to get better. I want that blue belt. I got those 3-4 stripes. Like, I'm chasing that thing, and you tell me to continue failing. Yeah. So, elaborate on that a little bit more, because I think this is an important lesson for many people out there.
Okay. So, when you fail, most general people that don't train or don't have that growth mindset, when they fail, they just make excuses of why they couldn't. And so after they keep doing that failure talk in their head, they let it define who they are. And so, if you want to be successful, you're going to have to embrace, learn from it, and then pivot. And most people that don't train, or the average person who's not very successful, will just stay in that loop of, I'm just not that kind of person. I can't do that. And so, anything I've learned through martial arts is that once you fail, that means it's an opportunity to learn. And so I need to reflect on what I'm messing up on and pivot and make some goals aligned to what I really want to accomplish. And so I think through that adversity, that changes you as a person, that grind. So jiu-jitsu I love because, you do that one class, you get smashed, you're the nail a lot before you become the hammer. And then eventually, if you don't give up, and if you have the perspective, I'm learning, I'm going through this to learn and change myself, at the end of it, I could actually, become something better, and maybe I'll be the hammer once instead of the nail, And so I think that mindset has served me well in life. I learned it from my mom, who was a single mom, working the mills, working her butt off, coming home dirty after a long shift, 12-hour shift. I haven't seen her in like a day and a half. And, she takes a shower, smiles, gives me a hug, and then redoes it again the next day. That grind, get in the shower and do it all over again the next day. So that hard work mentality, not giving up. Not only do we learn jiu-jitsu, you can learn it in life. And, if you apply that to things that you face adversity in, it'll change you as a person. So I think, the white belt to blue belt thing, don't give up, but also ask. Don't just show up and get, hey, what am I doing? What can I change? In my school, I want my students to come up and ask, like, hey, I'm having a problem getting out of the side control. Can you help me out here? Yeah. A lot of people are scared to ask sometimes. And I think that's got to change for schools to be, another level as well. But I'm rambling. So does that answer your question?
No. This is all good stuff. This is really phenomenal stuff. And you're right. Being approachable as an instructor sometimes is difficult, isn't it?
Oh, it's very difficult. You know, for me, like the traditional martial arts, you know, when they were a master back in the 80s, you know, they were all Asian. You know, you had to bow before you could even say hi. And so that drives me nuts because we're all regular people, man. We've just been doing it a little bit longer. That's about it. And I can learn from much as you learn from me. And so that approachability is huge. You know, hey, man, how are you doing today? High five, you know, not I'm the instructor. Let me go ahead and teach because I'm the professor, you know?
This is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
This is fascinating to me because you're part of Carlson Gracie Team, which is arguably one of the oldest and the most old school jiu-jitsu teams that exists out there.
Yes.
And you talk about this opposite side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Like, how is this blend together?
So for me, my roots, I was under another lineage before I switched at purple belt to Carlson Gracie Team. So I think that helps a little bit. Okay. But, you know, if you truly get to know the Carlson Gracie Team now with, you know, Carlson Gracie Jr. as our master and our leader, he is the most laid back, down to earth guy there is. And so,
he certainly is. Yeah.
And when you understand that, you know, he's respected because of who he is, not because he demands it. And when he's on the mat and he teaches, he's definitely traditional, but he has that, you know, he's smiling all the time, walking around, helping, adjusting people. I think he's the same way that we are in our culture. So, you know, when I've had him sit on this couch right here, you know, it's telling stories. He's a sweet man. He's a good person. You know,
unless he's on top of you, and then
then he's trying to kill you. That's a story. True story.
Yeah. The old school, 100 kilos. It just never fails.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, we talk about some phenomenal things over here from a business and life perspective, and just jiu-jitsu as a lifestyle. But how did this all start? I mean, you come from a traditional background. It seems like your childhood wasn't laid out with roses and unicorns and rainbows. There was some hardship. And grit is very visible from your mom, as you describe it. Traditional martial arts. At which point you discovered jiu-jitsu? Like, what happened there?
Yeah, so I was raised by it because my mom wasn't home. So my father figure, my dad didn't visit me much. He was always working the mills as well. A single parent home. My mom basically raised me by herself. And so my father figure was my Taekwondo instructor. But unfortunately, when I was 15 years old, he got killed in a car accident. So at 15, it was like, his name was Jeff Jones. He was an amazing man. At 15 years old, you know, it was pretty rough because I was like my father figure. And then my mom got remarried and we're moving to South Florida at 15 years of age. And so when I moved down here, I got hired by a very successful in the late 90s Taekwondo school where we had 500 members active at 2 locations here in Southwest Florida in Port Charlotte. It was the Schumans. Some people claim to fame as Melody Schumann and now Melody Johnson. She's an industry leader for kids martial arts. And her ex-husband, who was one of my best friends, I started working for them. And so at an early age, right at high school, college days, I was teaching full-time Taekwondo. So that helped me a lot as far as like structure and how to, you know, do business talks, how to do a sales call, that kind of stuff, the stuff you can't stand in the martial art industry. I learned a lot of it. And then eventually I just got tired of traditional martial arts. You know, UFC just happened. This is in the mid-90s. I got into kickboxing, started doing some amateur kickboxing events, and I was like, man, this is really fun. I don't like traditional martial arts anymore. I want to learn kickboxing, Muay Thai. And then through there, eventually, I went to a couple seminars where I think Marco Santos was one of my first ones in the late 90s. He's a Machado black belt out of Texas. I think he's a 5th degree now. I'm not for sure what rank he is on the Machado family. Great guy. Learned some half guard stuff for the first time, and it blew my mind. I was terrible. I couldn't do a scissor sweep to save my life. It was like, oh my gosh. And so when I hit something that I wasn't very successful at and it frustrated me, I was like, I got to learn this stuff. But unfortunately, in the early mid 90s, there wasn't a lot of people teaching jiu-jitsu. Yep. And so it took me several years to actually get somebody in our area. I mean, I can count on the first 3 black belts in Southwest Florida because I was here living and working up in Port Charlotte for years. So I eventually quit teaching Taekwondo, became a teacher because of my martial art experience, and got my degree in teaching, became a teacher. And then eventually I finally found one of our first black belts. And here's a really cool story. I was teaching part-time a kickboxing program at one of my buddy's Taekwondo schools. And I wanted jiu-jitsu. And so there's no one in our area that was official. or stayed long enough, because there was a few Brazilians that hit our area, but you build it, they won't always come. And so a lot of schools failed within 6 months to a year, and they moved back to Brazil or moved out of town. And so we didn't have anybody legit for a while until I invited Roy Dean. I followed him on YouTube videos, and I called him up, and I was like, man, I'd like to get you out for a seminar at my kickboxing program. And he said, yeah, this is in the early days. And he just got he was a first year back then.
What year is this?
2000.
Is it 2000 yet, or?
Yeah, early 2000s.
Okay.
Early 2000s, yeah. So he came in, and through that seminar, another black belt just moved to the area. His name was Trent Lewis. And I asked him to come help teach, because he just moved to our area. And through there, we had a club with him teaching twice a week. And that's how I officially got started. And that was like 2008, 2009 is when I started getting into jiu-jitsu. So
That's a long path.
Yeah.
Between that I feel like that 15 years old, when the tragedy strikes, you move across the country. That's a big pivot in your life. And then two, I feel like Roy Dean probably makes the big impact from a jiu-jitsu perspective.
Well, he had the first instructionals that were cleanly done with a traditional mindset.
Yeah.
The way he teaches is very traditional.
It is.
And so I was attracted to that because I come from that background, and he was the first person to really eloquently talk. And then, through him, we had my buddy Trent, and then eventually Roy Harris. And so Roy Harris was at my blue belt test, my purple belt exam. I had to get surgery after that purple belt exam. Roy Harris's tests are pretty crazy. And so Roy Harris, if you don't know who he is, he's not a Dirty Dozen. They went back and tracked that, but he was one of the early days.
They changed that. Yeah, I had him on the show too. Yeah. He tells the whole story. But yeah, you guys got to look this up. This is talk about OGs of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right?
And then eventually Joe Moreira. Joe came down as well, and I got to roll him at white belt and blue belt, which was crazy. He's a tough man, even at his age now. But then eventually, I was with those guys for many years, and that's what started it. And then at purple belt, I opened up my own academy finally, because I was getting older, in my mid-30s, and I was always wanted a martial arts school, always worked for them. And so I finally said, you know what, shit or get off the pot. Took my life savings and opened up the gym. And, within a year and a half, we had 150 students, 200 students within like 2 years. Next thing you know, we're at now, 12 years later, pretty big. And purple belt, though, I switched lineages because, the politics and drama of martial art business isn't always easy. And it's not always easy opening a jiu-jitsu school at purple belt. And so not very, sought after. But that was in the early, before 2014. And then eventually through time, got my black belt and started cultivating a big program through striking as well, too, MMA. I'm also a Roufusport black belt. Duke Rufus is a personal friend of mine. I've been teaching his systems for over 11 years. Been up to Milwaukee a lot, visiting him, training with him. That's how I found my current professor, Daniel Wanderlei. He was the head professor at Roufusport when Anthony Pettis was winning UFC golds, and Tyron Woodley there. It was just very, very cool time to be a part of Roufusport, and they're I think the peak of their professional fighters there. And through there, I met Daniel. Daniel came down for a seminar, and we hit it off. And he gave me my brown belt. He officiated my brown belt, and then eventually my black belt, my first degree, and next year my second degree. So, there you go. There's my story.
Well, first things first. Congratulations on this. This is a lot going on in just a short period of time. It seems like your life is really turning in a very rapid way. And the most mind-blowing part for me is that you actually don't do this full time. You have an actual real job.
Yeah.
That's the interesting part behind those. But I do want to ask you about the purple belt test. You said that things didn't go according to plan. What in the world happened?
So it's a little old school. It's not like Joe Moreira's tests where they put boxing gloves on and they punch you and you have to do jiu-jitsu only to get out. I know I've seen that test. Roy Harris is very technical. What I loved about being part of that association in my early days was that the fundamentals are everything. So the basic fundamentals are everything. So what he does in those tests, at least he did back then, I haven't been part of the association for quite some time. He makes you, for example, lay down in the middle of the room, and he gets all the ranks white to black, whoever's in the attendance, and they get a fresh guy on you, and you have to escape 9 times with each position. 9 different people 9 times. And so, you get a zealous white belt on there, and you're going for your purple belt. So you have your blue belt on, they get on top of a mount, they secure it, and then all of a sudden the timer goes, and you have to escape. Once you escape, you restart, they get back on again, and you do it again. same person. So now they already know the first trick. So you have to you have to change your approach. Like, I'm not doing an upa this time. I'm doing elbow knee escape. Now I need to do a foot drag. Now I do a kip. You know, you have to change up your approach and start chaining those escapes, because they already know that you're going to do this because you just did it to them. So after 9 times, they put another fresh person out there, a purple belt, then a brown belt, then a black belt. And then you're exhausted just doing mount escapes. And, you know, and then you do that for side control, guard passing, and then you start doing some takedown stuff. You know, you're 3 hours into this thing, you're exhausted, and then you have to spar. Then you spar Roy and all those guys, and oh my gosh. I really had to get a hernia surgery the following month. I popped a hernia bridging, So my first major surgery for jiu-jitsu was my purple belt exam. So
I give you, all of you guys who have gone through this, a lot of credit. And some of them are filmed. Roy Dean has done them in the past too, you know, for all belts, including black belts. Actually, recently,
I'm actually on one of his DVDs. It says No Gi Behind the Scenes. He put our seminar on the bonus section of his DVD back in the day.
Really?
So I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah. I like him.
But
He's
I
a
give
cool
you
guy.
guys a lot of credit, because I think by the time you are done with the technical part, you're so brainwashed, not even brainwashed, but like just exhausted. And then physically, you're probably not able to move much. And you're not done yet. Now we're gonna roll.
That's great. That's self-discipline for sure. Now, the funny thing is, I don't do that with my students now in the Carlson Gracie. I don't do it at all. You know, I think if you roll with somebody, you teach them daily, you know where their performance is at. You don't need to put a beat down on them, you know?
So is there a benefit behind these formal tests? You know, like I know Matt Arroyo does, you know, he tests for a few stripes as a white belt. We do similar at my academy. I know a few other academies who test every belt. You know, there was really no rules as to what is right or what is wrong. Most of the time is a perspective of the instructor or whoever does the programming. What are your perspective? What's your view on this?
So I mean, rites of passage, like I said, for adults are not very often, you know, so I think a test does provide a rites of passage for somebody that, you know, feel accomplishment, you know, because majority of people, let's be honest, majority of people that do jiu-jitsu do not compete. And so if you don't compete, where's your rite of passage? Well, you're there sparring every day in classes. Hopefully you're 2 to 3 times a week or even more. And, you know, you get it every day in the grind, but you don't get it attaboy, just a handshake and see you in the next class. And so I think testings will allow that rites of passage to happen, which I think are important. But for me personally, as I've gotten older and as I've, you know, had a school for a long time, I think that if you write a good curriculum and you have a very structured curriculum that repeats itself in a block format, that, you know, you as an instructor and your team can see this development. For me, like I have a 101, 201, and 301 class structure. So they have to graduate 101 to get into 201. And the 101 structure, just like you, is very structured for 1 stripe, 2 stripe, 3 stripe, and so on. And so, you know, by going through the classes and getting promoted, you know, they get the things I need to see in a test. And so we don't do tests anymore in my school. I did in the early days. I just don't do it anymore. Like, you know, for example, there shouldn't be a reason why a purple belt, you know, has to get a surgery after an exam, you know, and you can lose a student that way too, but it's just old school, you know.
And I also think at some point, you know, the tests become counterproductive because there is a creativity that comes with jiu-jitsu, especially at the higher belts, purple, brown, black, and so on, right? So like we want to be a little bit more fluid.
Yeah,
I was
that's
more
why like
referring to
Roy Dean does demonstrations. Like they make up some of their moves. I think that's cool. I think that's really cool. You know. Yeah. Not to like, hey, get gloves on, like beat the shit out of each other, or hey, let's get into this position and try to escape 9 times, 9 different people, 9 different.
That's
ways.
A grind. That's a grind. I'll tell you. 9
but I know
people...
my jiu-jitsu works now.
Well, yeah. Well, so that brings us to the interesting point of conversation, right? As jiu-jitsu continues growing, I do feel that it becomes a little bit more fluid as to what is right, what is wrong. You go to some academies and people don't even know how to hip escape, but they know how to berimbolo and do flying triangles. And then you go to other schools and it's all about self-defense, and they don't even they've never heard what, I don't know, spider guard is. And I'm not the one to judge which one is correct. However, there is a wide variety of what is being taught in each school. You as an educator, how do you see this? As, let's just say 10, 20 years from now, is this going to become a complete hot mess?
No, I think things evolve, and it's not always necessarily good. But I do think the fundamentals are the fundamentals. And as long as we are teaching good fundamentals for the first part of the journey, then each school will have their only focus. There's schools that just focus on no-gi. They're great at leg locks. They're great at berimbolo. And there's schools that, they do self-defense, which I think is important. Self-defense is awesome. But if you don't, like for me, I run an MMA program. I have a boxing program. I have a reality-based class, our Krav Maga. My coach is from Israel as well in my school. I have Roufusport striking system in my school. So I don't teach self-defense for jiu-jitsu because I want them to cross-train. When they cross-train, it allows people to, when they're getting burnt out from jiu-jitsu a little bit, they go focus on striking for a couple weeks and they get that passion back and they come back to the jiu-jitsu world. So I think diversifying things and how you teach is super important. If you're just a jiu-jitsu school, I think you should teach self-defense. How do you stop a punch? How do you take care of that headlock? Those things are super important to teach, but it depends on what's offered in the school, if that makes sense. I'm not really directly answering it, but I feel that as time goes on, I think we need to get together as a jiu-jitsu culture and start talking about what's important, in the schools that are successful, that are actually impacting people for more than 5 years, that have more than a couple hundred students. That's why I love these masterminds. I get to talk with people like Matt Arroyo and friends of mine that, hey, what are you doing? One of my favorite guys to talk to right now is a friend of mine, Sean Williams. Sean Williams is an amazing
I love
guy.
Sean. Jeez,
he's been in my school a few times, and I just jumped on a think tank with him about what do we teach and how do we teach things. People. Sean's a hidden secret. Us older guys in the
Nobody
community
knows
understand
really.
him.
You know what's blowing about Sean Williams? That people watch Flow Grappling and other things, and he does commentary for all of them, and they really don't know who the guy is.
So for those who don't know who he is, who's listening right now, he was Danaher's challenge going through the ranks in Henslo's Academy in New York.
Yeah.
And he's a phenomenal teacher. The body locked out of the past, that's him, man. The Williams guard.
Williams guard. Yeah, absolutely.
Dude, it's world class. And when you talk to him, he's down to earth and he's very analytical. I love talking with him about sport. So yeah, he's awesome. So definitely surrounding yourselves with people like that to say, hey, how are we bettering our students, and how are we making a curriculum that will be long lasting and develop somebody from white to black belt. There's a lot of schools that just develop tournament schools. It's for the next tournament. Me, that's not my school. I have very successful tournament people, Pan Am people, win medals, done it all. But at the end of the day, I'd rather develop you from white to black belt and be part of our school culture to go, out in the world and represent us as best you can and leave that legacy that we hope we give our students. But, it comes with good structure. It comes with long-term development, long-term curriculum. And does that incorporate self-defense? Not always. Does it incorporate the newest guard? It should. Does it develop them discovering their own art and their body type and their personality? For sure. So, I don't know, I'm rambling here, but I think there's a point there somewhere.
Yeah, no, you look, all of this boils down to putting a little bit of thought into all of this. I think that's where it all starts, and putting some kind of logic to systemizing this and really putting it together so the student is successful, right?
Yes, sir.
So what are your thoughts on this eco training, and because this is the opposite side of all of this, okay? And I'm gonna put you on a spot here because they complain about people who do curriculums, and people who do curriculums complain about them, and life is life, and both of them are successful. There's no argument behind this, but I'm curious, what is the placement in your head about this?
So being an educator, I think there's some merit there when it comes to the ecological approach. I'm very intrigued. If you look in that cabinet back there, I have all the books. I've read them. When it comes to ecological approach, I think it's amazing. But I don't think it's for everyone. I feel, and this is my personal experience, that routine and structure from the beginning phases of jiu-jitsu should be very, very systematic. Because the white to white belt 2-stripe should be very structured so they have a baseline. I think when they get to a certain belt, like blue belt or higher, that you should incorporate ecological approach in your training. I'm not an expert on it. I don't claim to be, but my warm-ups and how we start my no-gi classes, we always do that same kind of approach where we give a parameter and the students have to figure it out on their own to warm up. And so that could be from passing, psych, whatever we're working on that month in the curriculum. And so I do a mix at the higher ranks And then I do a very structured at the beginner ranks. And I think that's important because just like a student in a school setting, you have to develop structure, but then you have opportunity for them to grow once they develop a baseline.
And that all makes sense. No,
I hope so.
Look, if somebody who it's just simplifying all this. If you don't know what we are talking about, I need to guide you through specific things in order for you to learn things, so you can learn more. And once you become independent, now you can start experimenting. I mean, that's the gist of everything that you said.
It's a vocabulary. We're learning words, then we complete sentences, then we make paragraphs. I need to teach you the vocabulary first. And then you decide what you need to do with it when I set up parameters in game-based learning while we're actually doing the class.
How important is the ability to teach with all of this?
Teachers, I mean, just because you teach doesn't mean you're reaching every client or every student in the room. I think having a skill to teach comes through time. It's definitely feel fast, I've not always reached all my students like I think I do. But I think education, that's a really deep question, Tom. That's a really deep question because I don't know how to answer that simply. And I think,
Can anybody be a teacher?
I don't think everybody can be a teacher. People can show things, doesn't mean they're an educator.
Is it a learned skill or is it a gift?
I think it's both. I think it's a learned skill. Like I can create an instructor from my team within 6 months that can teach basic classes, our 101, but I wouldn't give that student my 301 classes because they don't know how to take the concepts and have a bigger picture when they teach that class. And so it takes structure, just like a white belt. You got to teach them, how to escape every position. It's the same thing with teaching. You got to teach them how to start a class, how to develop mode and tone in the classroom. How do I touch points for every student that hits that mat? We have systems in place where, I don't just line people up and go to a line warm up. We have our goal cards that they grab for their attendance tracking. It's old school. I have electronics. I have the best systems for people to check in. I don't do it. We do old school where we have a card that every student has in the room. They line up in a circle and the instructor goes to every student before class starts. High five, fist bump, grabs a card. So they have a touch point, that everybody gets hit before the class even starts. I think that's, learning how to impact people on the mat during that hour, 45-minute class or hour and a half class, depending on the class we're teaching. You can develop that structure. But when it comes to writing curriculum, learning how to address the needs of your room, learning how to get their attention in a way, I think that's part of personality. I think that's something that's, part of you, who you are as a person. But so it's kind of a mixed thing. How to teach is super hard to answer. That's Tom. You make me think about that all night tonight.
Well, but it kind of brings us to the beginning of this conversation where we say, hey, listen, there are blue belts or purple belts who want to teach. Hey, look, you were a purple belt and you open your own place. Granted, that was a decade ago, a while back.
I was also a black belt in other arts as well, though. Right. Jiu-Jitsu is my weak one, so that helped. That's for sure.
Absolutely, no doubt there. But there's plenty of people out there who are like, well, listen, I have a lot of passion for this. I've been doing this. I would like to do this for a living, maybe one day. Like I would like this opportunity. And the question is this teachable? Is this something that they can learn to be good at this? Because we already said there are some world champions who, I'm sorry to say, but they suck as instructors. They are not, they can't articulate they can't explain or relay what is in their mind, verbalize it out to the audience and touch every person.
Yeah, so I think you're right. You're correct. I think part of it can be teachable, but I also think the person that wants to do it, like everyone wants to open a martial arts school. And I think part of it, and I hate to say it this way pretty bluntly, it's two things that really motivate somebody to open a martial arts school, whether it's jiu-jitsu or kickboxing, whatever, MMA, is ego. And I think the other one is driving. They think they're going to make money. Neither of these things happen, ego and money. And so, when you do, or if you want to be a good teacher and you're at a purple belt or blue belt, first of all, communicate with your instructor. They got you that far. Talk to them, and if there's control issues there and stuff, then find another instructor, find somebody else. But at the end of the day, do you have a passion to impact people? or do you just want undivided attention, a theater show every day for your class, for your ego? So you have to be there for the right reasons. Am I going to change people's lives? Am I going to impact them? That's, I think, this first thing. That's your core, your mission statement. If that's true, then I think you can learn how to be a great instructor. And I think through time, through trial and error, and surround yourself with people that are doing better than you, and through failing fast, I think you can be a great instructor. But if you're in it for ego and you think you're gonna make a lot of money and you want a show to put on, fireworks in the background, rotation stage, hey, here I am, everybody, and I'm the black belt, or I'm the blue belt or purple belt, I think that's the wrong motivation. And through time, people will feel that, and through time, you won't be successful. And now you're in debt, and there's some issues going on. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. So, most martial arts schools that do start don't succeed. So that's what's sad to see,
Yeah, unfortunately, many of them fail.
Yeah.
Is it
questions.
easy?
Good questions, man.
Is it easy to run a Jiu-Jitsu academy?
I don't think so.
I'm not talking about the operational, the weeds and all of that, but from a simplistic perspective, is it easy?
I don't think so. For me, it's easy because it's my lifelong. I'm an educator for 25 years. I've been teaching martial arts since I was 15. I'm 47. So, no, it's not easy. I think it's a passion. It's an itch that I have to do. I want to surround myself with people I want to be around. And, when you're in a martial art academy, some of those people are the greatest people in my life. My best man at my wedding is somebody I met on the mats, so I've been married 23 years. So, I think you got to be in for the right reasons, and it's not easy. And that passion will take you through when those days are hard. Because people are gonna, people are people. People are gonna quit you. People are gonna move to another school. People are gonna quit martial arts in general. It's you have to have a thick skin, and you have to keep moving forward and be there for the right reasons, and don't let that change, no matter how successful you get.
How do you take these things not in a non-personal way? I mean, people moving out of state. I think that happens. I think that's the easy pillow to swallow. But I think it's hard one when somebody goes across the street and they choose to train somewhere else, or perhaps they open an academy down the street, or perhaps there are those situations where people are people. It's just it is what it is.
All those things you just said have happened to me.
Yeah,
all of them.
Yeah.
And
Same here.
So I mean, you do take it personal. I mean, let's be honest. You develop relationships, and the relationship ends. But it doesn't define you, and you shouldn't let it be your persona. You take your lump, you think about what you did wrong, because in two relationships, there's always 50-50 cause. Maybe I wasn't there for them when they needed me. Maybe, I didn't give my clear vision of what the future would look like. What's my mission statement? Those things are on me. So I think extreme ownership is huge. I think you should reflect on what did you do wrong, and not blame the other person and call them a creant and, throw your hands up and say, it was just them, and sometimes it is just them. Maybe that, you're just not the right person at the right moment. And so when you take the personal out of it and you look at the big picture, I didn't do what they needed, and I feel bad about that. And I always will feel bad about that. But at the end of the day, if I see them at a tournament, I don't want to put my head down or fly the bird at them. I'd love to give them a hug and say, how are things going? And so for me, I try to leave on always a positive note. And I've had blue belts and purple belts leave and open to schools. One didn't succeed, and one is still successful to this day. And we're friends. We're kosher. I can say hi to a tournament, give them a hug. What's up? But at the end of the day, you have to have a thick skin. It's not easy. Is it easy to be a teacher? No, it's not.
I feel like this, we oftentimes preach this culture of community, brotherhood. And then in situations like this, that bites us.
Yeah.
It is much easier when we look at, education system, schools, the teacher leaves, goes to somewhere else, life is good, it's a very different bond than what we are experiencing, especially in Jiu-Jitsu, isn't it?
Yes, it is different. It's very, when you're sweating on top of each other every day and you're, the ups and downs of life, hey, how was work today? And you miss people. For me, it's not about are you under me in my lineage? I can care less about that. It's just the bond that I made with you when we spent the time on the mat. And it's like losing a family member, it sucks. But at the end of the day, you can't take it personal, because you should focus on that next new student that walks in the door, because that's another chance to try again and try to impact them in a ways that you didn't impact that last person. So
I like that. I like the last final phrase that you said, because many people out there focus on being negative and really having this I could do this, and pointing finger and really spinning this in a negative direction. What could have been, what we could have done, instead of really focusing, hey, listen, there's hundreds of other students who are still here, and we're focusing on somebody else. And two, there's students coming in daily, which probably need my undivided attention. And right now they are not getting it because I'm sucked into this vortex of negativity.
Yes. Positive vibe tribe for sure.
Positive. Do you have bad days?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, after, working all day, in the education system in the state of Florida, it's not always the greatest. We have a lot of problems, and, being positive at the end of the day is hard. I try when I go teach at the gym, try to take a half hour to myself with no distractions, no cell phone, kind of take a 30-minute reflection. And then while I'm on the way down to the gym in my car, I try to focus on, my mission and what we're doing. And then before I open that door in the back of the gym, all my students on the back mat, there's always a class going on back there. I smile. I put a fake ass smile on as big as I can, even though I don't want to, because I'm tired and exhausted and burnt from the day. And I smile, because when I open that door, the first person I see will see how I am. And so it's my job as a leader to show that, hey, no matter how bad it's getting, we're going to kick ass today. And so
how important is that smile?
Super important.
You have bad days?
Yeah.
Your days suck. You could walk in, slam the door, throw your bag, throw your hat off, and say, today sucks.
You can do that behind closed doors. As a student, as a teacher, as a leader, it's your job to impact people. You can't impact them the wrong way. Yeah. And so that's the crown we wear as a leader at our schools. We got to show them that, hey, no matter what, I'm here for you, not for me. And so it's time to, be there for our students. And so you can't do that if you have a pissy attitude, so. Even if it's a fake smile, they'll know it. It's just at the end of the day, we're going to work a little bit harder in that class for sure. Maybe a couple extra more rounds that day. But at the end of the day, I did my due diligence. Hey, take a smile. It's not their fault. The day sucks. We'll just keep going forward, because that's what we do.
So arguably, this could be the most important question of the whole conversation. So when are you leaving your full-time job to work full-time at your academy?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. In the state of Florida, we need 30 years, right? I got 25 under my belt. This is my year 26 that I'm teaching right now. I just had my boss, who I worked with for 15 years, retire. It's hard right now. We have a new boss, new beginnings. And I looked at my retirement, and even if I spend 5 more years, I'm already vested. I do get something. It's not as much money as I thought it would be. And so now, it's like, how do I impact more people? So my goals now is like, I have a lot of good friends that I work with every day, some of my best friends. And so I'm there for them this year. But every year is a thought, I do want to open another location. My team is getting to the level where I need to open up more locations for them to succeed, to have the lifestyle they want. And so, we are definitely planning, and have been planning for 2 years, to open another location, but to do it right in a way that doesn't live or die with Josh Frye. And so test our systems out for real at a smaller scale without me at all. And so I'm excited about that. I think that's something I'll do before I hit my 30 years. But right now I'm just playing year by year, if that makes sense, at 47 years of age.
Is that a goal for you? That you essentially run the operations and your team is the face of the business?
Yes. Right now, my school, I'm only there about 4 classes a week now. 2 years ago, that wasn't the case. I wanted them to be leaders. My greatest compliment is when a new person walks in, comes up to me, and I'm in my t-shirt, not in my gi or anything, with black belt on. They're like, "Hey, man, you taking class?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to take class." They don't know that I own the place. And so for me, that's the biggest accomplishment, because, in the early days, it's all about me, micromanage. When I started making systems for my team to grow and be the leaders, and building a culture amongst my staff that, we're in this as a company together. Think bigger picture, not Mr. Frye makes all the money off everybody, because that's what people think. It's about providing opportunity, insurance benefits, 401ks, things like that. We have to grow. And so, once I set up a system of me not being there and watching it run without me and succeeding, is probably my greatest accomplishment as a business owner at this point. And so I want to open another location to test it. My goal is I would like to own 3 where I'm ownership, and then we start talking about, separating the ownership and letting people take over as an association, but we'll see what happens. That's the 3-year statement right now, the 3-year vision statement, open a location. So
good for you. I mean, good for you. That's really thinking big. I don't think a lot of people think that way. I think many people really focus on this point right now, this little thing, and how can I squeeze out of it? Mm-hmm. You're really thinking ahead, and I like it, and I do appreciate it. That's really cool stuff there. That's really cool stuff there. Where is all of this going in a sense of jiu-jitsu? Do you think that gi will disappear and this no gi will completely take over? Do you think that jiu-jitsu will fade away because it's going to be complete hot mess? I mean, I don't know. Like, there's so many thoughts on all of this.
There's a lot of thoughts on there. It's a hot topic for sure. CGI, all that stuff that just happened last weekend.
What's your thoughts on CGI?
I don't know if I want to go there, but I just
fair enough.
Yeah. I like watching CGI because of my friend Brandon McCaffrey. He's a friend of mine. We were in a business group over 10 years ago. He's an announcer on it, and it's just cool to see your friends on national broadcast. That's cool.
Yeah.
But other than that, as far as jiu-jitsu there's fads, man. There's fads. It goes and comes. And we have a lot of vocal young people right now speaking what they think jiu-jitsu is. And I think jiu-jitsu is a beautiful art. I think that it's not going anywhere. I think it's going to be bigger than ever. The fact that UFC is putting money into the art tells you a lot, because it's a huge business and a lot of money behind it. I think that it's going to evolve. I think it's mainstream more than ever. I think the schools, though, that, are trying to be a balance of new school and old school are going to be the most successful. I think that, the more that MMA gets popular, I think incorporating those kinds of things in your school will give you longevity. Do I like the way it's going? Not necessarily. I feel like, for somebody who grew up in the Taekwondo industry in the 80s when I was the only kid in an adult class, within 15 years, there were, classes with 300 kids in them and no adults. And so, I think that's happening in jiu-jitsu. I think what happened in the traditional Taekwondo karate world in the 80s and 90s is starting to happen now in jiu-jitsu, which can be good and bad because it brings all sorts of people to the table. And some of them are not great teachers. Like we talk about what it takes to be a good teacher. And, that's why I believe in programs like Academy Safe. Academy Safe is a nonprofit organization to vet good teachers that have clean backgrounds, that have done due diligence for concussion training, AD training, CPR, professionalism. I think that's something, if you're listening to this and you're a school owner, you should take a look at Academy Safe. It's a nonprofit. The guys there have a great mission to stop, pedophilia in jiu-jitsu, safe your schools, so people don't get hurt. It's an awesome initiative. I'm the first school in Florida to get certified through it. My whole staff is certified through it, and it cost me a couple $100 and some time. And so I think, those kinds of things need to be implemented for industry standards so we can grow as an art and be sustainable. So yeah, that's a lot of stuff there. I'm giving you a lot of tidbits here, but yeah.
No, so, I think
professionalism.
The main thing is that this continues growing, and I think there's a lot of opportunity what didn't exist, 20 years ago as far as careers. I think now that becomes more and more visible. I'm not talking about somebody owning an academy, but actually working at one and having a career as a coach, as a staff.
Students, you have people move down the road and open their own school. Well, that owner didn't provide a bigger picture about development together. What does it look like us 10 years from now? What kind of lifestyle do you want? And it's my job as a CEO to create that. And so as we grow, yes, it needs to be more professional because we need bigger pictures together, not individually. We're always stronger as a team.
Always.
We are always stronger as a team. And you can do it on your own, but you probably won't be successful in 5 to 7 years. And if you are, great job. But wouldn't we want to do it together as a team? and then learn from our mistakes. And then if I need help, you got my back and I got your back. And that's, I think, is going to help professionalism in jiu-jitsu for sure.
And I think I would add to all of this the simple fact that we as individuals cannot do everything. And the team brings that diversity and filling the gaps of what needs to be accomplished as a team, as a whole, as a system, as a company. What you do well, I don't. And, I see that's at least how I recruit people and how I hire people to my team. I want people that with the things that I don't do well. Right?
Yes.
That's the bottom line.
I suck at sales. My first hire was somebody that does sales.
Train
with me for free.
I tell Gary, my GM, constantly, like, you don't want me in the front. You don't. You want me to shaking hands and smiling. That's it. You do not want me to do sales. You don't.
Yeah. Kissing babies and shaking hands. Yeah.
That's it. That's it. Right. We have good things that we do and things that we don't. Just find somebody else.
Hire weaknesses for sure.
That's
weaknesses.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Awesome.
Josh, thanks for this hour and a bit of your time to really share your story and have this deeper conversation on teaching and instructing and really the vision of as you present it for yourself. If anybody wants to connect with you as a follow-up to this or perhaps seek a little bit more advice from you, you put quite a bit of content daily. Where can you be found on social media?
So I have some social media stuff that's, it's everywhere. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Coach Frye. So Coach F-R-Y-E-D, Coach Frye on Instagram is my Instagram, which I get to. If you're in Southwest Florida, Bonita Springs, Florida, my academy is open to everybody. We have people from all over the world coming in all the time on vacation. My doors are open. If you come down this area and you're in the area and want to talk shop about business, whatever, I have an open door policy. I'll show you our meeting room, our war room, where we make up plans and talk about things. I'll show you my systems. And I'm not in it for money or anything. I just want people to succeed. I think, I wouldn't be as successful without the people giving back to me for free. And I'm always willing to share and talk shop and, help motivate people. So, come visit me in my school, the Grounds MMA Academy in Bonita Springs, Florida. You reach me at Coach Frye on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook and all that stuff too. So, cool.
I'll make sure that we put all the links, as we always do, in the show notes of this episode. So if you guys want to connect with Josh directly, feel free to do it. Amazing research, a great mind, great educator. So why not connect? Why not get better at all of this?
Yes, sir.
Josh, thanks for hanging out with me for an hour. Thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for, doing all these amazing things. I often say, we need more people like you.
Thank you, Thomas.
And jiu-jitsu would be a much better place if we all took just a little bit from this.
Yes, sir. Thomas, also, thank you so much for being patient. It took us a while to get this podcast going, so I appreciate it. I am a busy guy, so thank you so much for having me. It's an honor, dude, and I love what you're doing on this podcast. Great insight, great interview. Awesome, man. Thank you.
I appreciate you, and let's stay in touch.
Yes, sir.
Let's wrap this up for today.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to RŌL Radio. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review and help us make the show even more amazing. For future episodes, check out our website and follow us on all major podcast platforms. Take care.